All right, today we're gathering with journalist and podcast host Lea Palmeri. She is here to do our Southern Charm end of season deep dive with me. And as someone who once hosted a BravoCon panel for Southern Charm, Lea felt like the perfect person to invite on for this episode. Lea, glad we're finally getting you on the pod. It's been a while. How are you?
Gibson, hi. I did two BravoCon Southern Charm
Okay,
panels,
I
just
stand corrected.
FYI.
I stand corrected. The first two,
As you
correct?
know, yeah, as you know, like they all count. So,
Yep.
it feels amazing. I'm so excited, mostly just to see you, but of course, like to
Oh.
talk about these silly billies as well. So,
So you did the first two BravoCon panels for Southern
yeah.
Charm.
hmm
Talk me through a little bit like what that was like, your history with the cast, your history with the show, because you were in deep with the Bravo world for a
Yeah.
while.
I called it embedded because like when
That's
you
a
go
good
to
word.
war, you're like embedded. And so that's how it felt for me. I was working at Decider at the time, and they have, certainly continued the tradition of keeping on top of all things Southern Charm. But you're so in it. And like even as we've seen this season, like I remember when that Austin video dropped. I'm sure I don't need to even say anymore. We all know which video I'm talking about.
Madison,
Yeah.
Madison, as Andy loves
Yes.
to.
And it was just like it was so weird because we were like, what is this? Where did it come from? How is this? So every single thing, and like they, tweet something, they post something, it's news. And so, but the BravoCon stuff was really fun because I think, especially the first one, they were so jazzed to be there because nobody kind of like knew really
Totally.
what
It
it was
was,
or what was
yep,
going
I did
on.
a couple
Yeah.
that BravoCon too. It
Yeah.
was like a testing ground for everything.
It was my favorite because it was organized chaos, I would say. Like everything ran so smooth, but I know like in the lead up to it, we all were like, I don't know.
Right.
But it was awesome. It felt so good to have the energy from the crowd. And then I felt like the second one was harder because that was the year they had a large cast. And so like how do you possibly really dig into what everybody is doing and saying and hooking up with? And so that one was trickier, but the first one was really fun. I mean, the second one was great too because it also felt elevated. And to sort of see the difference
Right.
from each year. I guess that was over COVID though, so there was 3 years in between. But I love it because like, what you see is what you get with them too. Like,
Yeah, that's
as you
true.
know, from so many of these Bravo shows, like they are what they seem like they are. And so
Yeah.
like there is something really refreshing about that. So that's always, fun to see up
What do
close.
you, I mean, because I feel like you talked about the sort of ballooned cast a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's something that I feel like, and maybe we'll get more into this at the end, but the show, the cast has ballooned in recent years in a way that feels a little bit unnecessary to me. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And that's not to be
Yes.
shady about anybody in particular. It's just sort of like it feels like there's been a couple seasons now where it's sort of like we have these just a lot of extra people around that, and I don't know if it's because, and I think it's mostly like there's not that much airtime for them to like really blossom and like share their stories, but like it's sort of like why are we having these people here if they're not going to have their sort of moments? You know what I mean?
100%. There's a handful on this current cast
Yeah, exactly.
that I don't want to take anybody's job away from them ever, but there's some people I feel like didn't want to show things. And so it's like, then why are you here? If you're not
Hmm.
getting along, if you don't want to interact with these people and you don't want to show your life, what is actually the point?
Right.
And for some people, this is a group of this group loves the spotlight, each of them individually. So sometimes I think for those that are less like, look at me, it can be a little bit hard to sort of find your place
Sure.
sometimes. But we still need those people too.
I agree. It's all
So
about balance. It is all about balance.
yeah.
So we're speaking. We've both seen the second part of the reunion for this
hmm
season, and again, we'll get into the full season. But sort of top line thoughts on the reunion and how sort of satisfied you were with the two-parter.
I actually felt very satisfied with
Me
this
too.
one. I
Me
don't
too.
always. And I actually felt if things weren't resolved, they will be by the time cameras go up again. I actually felt like we got to things. And I also felt like the things we didn't really need to drag on, they didn't. And that I think is also really important too. Specifically like Sally and Taylor. I don't need to hear them go back and forth about like if that guy's a piece of shit or not. Like we can all sort of make our own minds up. And we're not changing anyone's minds in that room either.
No,
So I
no,
thought that
especially because
was,
Taylor's one of those people who wasn't going to get into details. And so it's
yeah,
sort of like, I think the audience is kind of on probably on one side of that in terms of,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, I totally agree. And like when you have a season like this where the beginning was like a little lackluster, I would say, a little uneventful, and then it definitely ramped up in the second half.
yeah.
But there were probably like three main big storylines on this season: Shep and
Mhm,
Sienna, Craig and Paige, and sort of in
mhm.
hindsight looking at that relationship, and then I guess Craig and Austin's thing too, and then
Yeah,
Vanita and JT. So four kind of big things that we were looking at, and they all got a lot of airtime on this two-part reunion without much
yeah.
fluff, which is a
Hmm.
nice feeling when you're watching a reunion like this, especially after a season like we had.
They did a really good job. There was only like one or two times where people were talking over each other too. I can't
Yeah,
stand when they all talk and yell at the same time, and Andy has to
especially
be
when
like,
there's
"You
30 people on
guys."
stage.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I thought that they handled that really well. And I thought that nobody cried or walked off. So
That's true.
that's
That's
like,
true.
when's
Hmm.
the last time that happened?
I guess we got a momentary exit from Vanita to get her phone, but
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
but that
yeah.
doesn't
That
count.
was just
Yeah,
to retrieve. Yeah.
yeah,
And you know
yeah.
what? We have to take in the moment that is Miss Patricia coming for the first
That's true.
time in 10 years.
I
I
can't
think
believe it
that's
was the first
amazing.
time. I can't believe it was the
Yeah.
first time. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild.
I
Yeah.
thought she looked amazing. I thought obviously like we could have had more from her, but we had other things to solve and she just sort of, added her wisdom to the mix. But
Well,
I liked
and
seeing her there.
and speaking of her, it's sort of like Whitney, who is a
Yeah.
quasi cast member on the show. He's a
Hmm.
producer of the show, obviously. He doesn't ever come to the reunion, and
Yeah.
yet he has things that he's never had to answer for. And it's just a
Yeah.
little bit, that is like a little law, like throughout the show, it's been an annoyance for me, especially in recent years, where like he'll rear his head and
Hmm.
he'll tell Molly that she shouldn't eat a cupcake, or he'll hook up
Yep.
with some random person and like he won't have to explain
Yeah.
it.
He stirs the pot and walks away from the stove while it lights on fire. And so it's just like, I get it. And I guess that's a perk of being a producer for as much as he actually, quote, produces. I think Patricia kind of also takes over where he doesn't. And
Yeah.
she'll say the things that he doesn't want her to say. And we're thankful for that.
That's true. Yeah, I think at this point I'm sort of like I don't really need him on the show, to be honest. Like if he wants to be at the dinners that Pat hosts at her house, great, but I
Yeah.
don't need him really elsewhere if he's not
Yeah.
going to kind of play ball, you know, around all the bases.
Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So before this season, so let's go back sort of the beginning. We lost two cast members from last season in Rod and
Mhm.
Olivia. Two, I'd say they contributed in very different ways to the show.
Yes. Yes.
Did you find that you missed them at all? What did you make of sort of the cast reset from the perspective of who we lost?
Rod, no.
Yeah.
Um, with all due to him, seemed
Hmm.
lovely.
Hmm.
Was not
He was
like,
there for a reason last season.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And also like kind of proved there are some nice dudes,
that's true.
bumbling around Charleston. Seemed nice, but yeah, I don't think the show was right for him. I don't see him coming back to like really
Mm-mm.
shake things up. Olivia, I will say, I would like to see her when she was in a great place and separate from Austin. And I think she has a lot of like exciting things happening in her life. I know she got engaged and things like that. So it would have been kind of fun to be on that journey as well. Um, I don't, but I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
how, I don't need her and Taylor rehashing literally anything. So that maybe it's for the best. Maybe she comes back. I would sort of like to see her maybe as a friend of, just to kind of have her back in the mix a little bit because I did like her and I thought she was, said it like she
Yeah,
sees it kind of
exactly.
thing. Yeah. So I wouldn't say I necessarily missed her in the mix, but like I
But
wouldn't
you
be
wouldn't have
mad if
hated
she
having
came
it.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like for me, it sort of felt like they sort of chose Taylor over her in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think they
Hmm.
chose Taylor over Olivia seemingly so that she could sort of weigh in on the Shep and Sienna of it all, maybe that
Hmm.
they could sort of maybe just see how Shep reacted to Taylor having Gaston in her life
Yeah.
and like kind of follow that thread. And then we also brought in Sally, so there was this sort of intrigue over
Yeah.
like, okay, like is the Gaston thing going to become this big thing? And they wanted it to, and it kind of should have, but
Hmm.
because Taylor is so conflict averse and kind of ran away from
Yep.
almost every confrontation over these topics, it just sort of like there was like a balloon there that could have been blown up, and it just sort of
Yes.
like remained deflated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
it was just frustrating because I do think that even though the Olivia thing probably like she had a new boyfriend and like she
Yeah.
wasn't gonna like be like a hookup for anybody or anything like that. She's much more dynamic than Taylor is, and I just think
Yes.
that
She'll
Taylor
get into
really,
it.
and I'm not even trying to be like an asshole. Like Taylor really didn't bring that much to the season, and it didn't feel like she wanted to do what her job called her to do.
100%.
And when you're having it, especially when you're having a season that's sort of like taking a while to launch,
Yeah.
that's really it becomes obvious.
I fully agree with you. I think, you know, I my heart goes out to her because I know she's
Of
grieving and she's still
course.
going through a lot. But like, I think the better thing would have been to remove yourself because,
Yeah.
I thought that one of the more telling moments of the season was Rodrigo going over and saying, maybe if you brought Gaston around and everyone got to actually like meet him and see for themselves. And she was like, nah, like had no interest in that. And whether, he was sort of encouraged to bring that up or he said it on his own, I still think that was the point. Like, where you could all the back and forth and he said she said it's because he's not around, and if he was actually there he could speak for
Exactly.
himself. And so I did think that was a missed opportunity. I understand why Taylor's more connected to the cast like you just said, and so I get that. But yeah, she didn't want to do anything. The fact that like, and again, I feel terrible because I know she was going through it, but the fact that she just was like, nah, I'm not gonna have my birthday party anymore, and so it was like, all right, well, we're all going to hang at Craig's. The
Right.
job still got done. We still got the goss out of it and stuff. But like that, it just, there was a lot of missed
Yeah,
opportunities.
and it makes it so like Sally, who's one of the new people, like she had this sort of like storyline on a platter, and
Yeah.
like
Yep.
and she did her best to like
Yeah.
do stuff with it, and I think she did, but like it could have gone 20 steps further, and she's the newbie and Taylor's the quote unquote vet in that situation, and
Yeah.
like that just I think it told me everything I need to know about sort of where Taylor is with the show. And again, obviously she's going through a lot, but
Yeah.
I think if you are going to sign up for a show like this, you do have to bring your full self. And I don't think
Yeah.
she brought her full self. So we did add Sally, Molly, and Ryan to the cast.
Hmm.
Sally, again, I really enjoyed her. I think that she's like pretty dynamic. She's not afraid of confrontation. Like I
Hmm.
think that it clearly is very connected to this group. I mean,
Yeah.
she's hooked up with three or four of the guys that we talked that were in the mix this season.
Yeah.
Um, and then she has this like really impressive job. Like she does like to
Yeah.
me like checks a lot of the boxes for this show, and I hope they keep her around because um, I like her. I like her
I I fully agree with you too. I thought the breast reduction stuff was actually really interesting, and I
totally,
thought that was so personal, and she still handled it with like a lot of like confidence and just like assuredness. And I think where what we didn't get to see from her and like the Gaston of it all, she was able to shine because she was able to talk about controlling robots and her boobs and like,
totally.
the two very different
Uh-huh.
things. But like again, that really shows the dynamic, like just like how this she's a full woman and like has a lot going for herself. And so I think that was she was really refreshing, and again also isn't afraid to get in the drama too. So like that, this is, yeah, that's a dream
Yeah,
cast member for this
totally,
show.
totally. And I think that sometimes this show will like cast these more like timid women
Hmm.
who are sort of they feel like they're there for the men to hook up with, and I hate that
Yeah.
feeling. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I feel like they aren't empowered. And Sally to me felt empowered, and I also think that Molly felt empowered. I
Yeah.
love Molly. Like in this part two of the reunion, Andy quotes Brian Moylan, who calls us like her like a lovable nerd, and like I
Yeah.
totally agree. Like she is so like you want to root for her, and she was super open about her own struggles with her body image and her career and just sort of like feeling a little bit lost, but like she's still, I mean, the scene of her at that concert playing
Yeah.
like that was one of the best scenes of the entire
Yeah.
season, I thought.
Yeah.
And um she's another one who I'm just like I want to get to know her better. I do.
I thought that was exactly the right balance with her. Same. Anyone who's going to talk about how moving music can be, like you already got me. Like we're in. I
Period.
love it. I love that she is sort of quirky. I love that it's relatable that she's talking about her body. Even though I'm like, what? Like you're gorgeous. What are you
No,
talking about?
of
But
course, but
like
it's
it's
because
like,
she
yeah,
comes from like the modeling world where you're
yeah,
expected to be stick thin,
yeah.
and yeah, I mean she's
She's
gorgeous.
yeah.
She's
Watching
smart and
her
talented and
just yeah, she's really fun and she brings the right vibe to the show too. There was also enough of her sort of like having a crush on Shep, kissing at the end. Like, I thought that her crush on Shep wasn't her whole storyline, thank God.
yeah,
Because that was obviously a flash in the pan. Like he's moved on, she's moved on. If so it seems. But I thought it was, you know, to bring a little kookiness to the show is never a bad thing.
totally. Yeah, so that was the other thing. It's like she had this sort of Shep intrigue, even though Shep was
Yeah.
like on the Sienna boat this season.
Hmm.
Like there was still like there was a clear like
Adrift. Yeah.
nice little yeah exactly out at sea.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there was they Molly and Shep definitely have a little bit of a vibe, which is like it's
Yeah.
and then on Sally's part it was sort of like towards the end because we obviously knew that Craig and Paige had broken up. It was sort of like
Hmm.
oh could her and Craig be a thing? And now we know they're not, but
Yeah.
like there was that hint of like that inkling that added to I think the intrigue for both of them.
Yeah, for sure. I think the women are both of them were great additions. I better see them back because I'd love to see both of them navigate dating in Charleston with other
Yeah,
dum-dums and not
with
like
other
this group.
guys
Like I would love to
exactly.
see what that's like for them. I would love to see more about their jobs, more about the band, more about the robots. Like that to me
Yeah, bring us
is,
to band practice. You know,
yeah, like those are cool things. They both got their little dogs. Like I just think that they're much more relatable than most of the women certainly we see on Bravo. And so like but there's still that aspiration because they're both beautiful and awesome and successful. So I really want to see more from them. The thing
right?
that's going to start to be a problem is when they outshine the men because they're going to have a lot going on and
Hmm.
people are really going to like them and like we know the guys aren't going to be on board with that.
Right.
So but let's see it happen. I'm okay with it.
Let's see it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other new addition we had was Ryan, who I just don't think he ever got enough to do. Like that he did not that he like he never really got that much of his story told. Like he clearly is very close with
Mhm.
Pat and Madison, and like the group all knows him, and he clearly has this like really great life with his doctor
Yeah.
husband. But it's like we never really got to see that, which just feels like it's one of those moments where it's like they bring somebody in and they just because it feels like they're just there, kind of I think because of the editing and just like how
Yeah.
production nets out. But like it must be tough to be in that situation if you're somebody like Ryan.
Like, I couldn't tell if my vibe from him was that he's just sort of like kind of a mind your business guy, or like
Sure.
will gossip with is it his husband? I think they're married,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
His partner, whatever. And so, like, I think when he was sort of like shoehorned into that drama at the end with like JT and
Hmm.
Vanita and Leva, like it felt like kind of out of place because I'm like, this guy, it doesn't seem like this guy would be out here lying and making like these
Right.
kinds of serious things up. I didn't like mind having him around,
No, me neither.
especially if someone like Patricia just needs like a normal person to be sitting next to her. Like, he can absolutely do
Totally.
that. But like, do I know anything about him after the season? No, I don't know anything
Yeah.
about him. So,
And
which
that's probably
sometimes
not his
better.
problem. That's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
because
Yeah.
you go on Wikipedia and it's like he's a main cast member. And like we
Oh
just
wow. Yeah.
and that if you're gonna have somebody a main cast member, you gotta give them some breathing room, And I understand
Yeah.
it's a crowded cast, but like then don't have a crowded cast, like I don't know.
What's his job? Like we didn't even get like a segment where like it's
No,
like,
not one.
here's my life and like here's my partner and here's my job, like
It's
or
crazy.
here's me driving my car. Like
Hmm.
I don't know anything about him. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know if he was just like I'm all set or if he
I
was
think
not
they
in the
cut it.
mix or
I think
what.
they cut
Yeah.
it.
So,
Yeah. But I think you're right. It's like I'm totally with the barber thing at the end. Like
yeah.
he's not going to lie about that. Like he's not going to make that up. Like like JT clearly said something. The barber probably repeated it in a more like defamatory way, and
Yeah.
Ryan I think repeated it as he heard it. So he's
Yeah,
not
what's
going
he gonna
to.
get out of that? He's
Yeah.
not gonna like
Totally.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
that was very strange to
Yeah.
me, that whole thing.
And
But
the other person that before we get into like the meat of the season is Leva. She
mm,
has been on for a while. I mean, she's been on for I think four. She was on for 4 seasons as a
mm,
full-time cast member, which kind of like I feel like in a blink of an eye
yeah,
that happened. And I love Leva. I don't think she's meant to be like a star reality star. You know, I think that
yep,
she is like I'm thankful that we got introduced to her, particularly because we got Southern hospitality out of
hmm,
it, and I think that that is like a win for everybody. But she announced obviously that she's not coming back to the show, and I think that's the right decision. I
yeah,
think, as she said, she like her life is like pretty drama free, and
yeah,
like she probably should have done this maybe a season ago, you know, and still like maybe just like been around when she wants to for filming.
hmm.
But you know, I like Leva as a person. I really do. I just don't think she's
I
meant
do
to be a
too.
reality star in
Yeah,
that
I
way.
don't think she's like she doesn't thrive off of the drama in the way that other people do. And so I'd like to see her a little bit more on Southern Hospitality. Like go
Yeah,
yell at some of these dum-dums and be like,
of
"What are you
course.
doing?" Like I'm totally fine with her in that LVP role. Like go for it. And I think that's the right place for her. You know, the interesting thing was she was at times the glue that, she had to have that awkward conversation with JT at the end.
Yes,
She also was the one, I think specifically with him, she was sort of the only one that he would kind of sit down and chat with. And so, like, there were times where she was a little bit of like a mom figure or like was moving things along of like, well, I'm going to talk to this person or you need to talk to that person. And so somebody is going to have to step up
definitely.
into that role. But yeah, but that's a waste of her. Like, we don't need, let her live her life and like, do put your drama into Southern hospitality where there's plenty to go around there for sure.
Yeah, that's almost like a role that I almost think that Madison could play going
A
forward,
hundred
especially
percent.
because she's
Yes.
pregnant.
Yeah.
And like, I think
Yeah.
that Madison, we know that she's not afraid of drama and she's not afraid of confrontation, but I also kind of get this sense from her, just in the way that she sort of handles herself and Watch What Happens Live and in interviews and things, that she doesn't. I don't think the drama gets her going as much as it used to in that way. Like it does,
Hmm.
like that's not sort of what makes her tick anymore. I think that she can get there, but it's not as like right below the surface for her anymore. And so I think that she could sort of be more into that role because she is good friends with Vanita. She has the friendship, I guess, with JT.
Yeah.
She's obviously really good friends with the guys, Shep, Craig, and Austin. So I could see her playing that role more going forward too.
This was my favorite season of Madison's since she's
Yeah,
been on the show.
she had a
And
great season.
she just did what she's meant to do. And I think, I think part of it was losing her dad certainly gives you a lot of perspective. Going through the stuff with Brett gives you perspective of like,
Of
this shit
course,
does not matter. And when it does, it really matters to her. And so, like, you saw the most fired up she got was with JT being like, do not talk about my marriage. And so, like, yes, she's not going to shrink from any of the drama. She loves to stir it. And she, I think, is learning how to stir it in a more eloquent way. Kind of, she's taking a note from Patricia's book, certainly, of like,
definitely,
oh, well, I heard
definitely.
she said this. And like, then just sitting back and enjoying. And so I absolutely think, next season, what are we going to see? Her sort of like feeding the baby while she's talking to somebody and like, oh, he said that, what? And so, like, I think that is exactly the right role for her where she's still involved without starting things, without coming across bitchy, just moving it along and smiling. And, I think a lot of people loved the friendship with her and Austin too. Like, you could see why there was actually a bond between the two of them.
Definitely.
And her and Craig too. I think, yeah, I'm fully here for that.
Yeah, me too. And it's now that I'm thinking about it, is she so obviously we're seeing Lindsay pregnant on Summer House. We're going to see Madison pregnant on Southern Charm this
Mhm.
coming season. Did all the Vanderpump people who have kids, weren't they pregnant sort of in between? Like, were they pregnant on the show or were they pregnant sort of between seasons? I can't remember, but I feel like a lot of them had babies sort of in a break between seasons
Yeah.
almost. And
Stassi
it's,
was definitely gone.
yes, I just can't remember
Brittany,
seeing, I can't
Brittany,
remember,
I feel like was pregnant at some point,
I can't remember,
and I can't
but
remember with Lala. Lala must have been.
I just can't picture it, but I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
maybe it's just a blockage in my head.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
it's I think as we see as these shows in particular continue to sort of like evolve, like I think Madison is whatever role she plays as a pregnant woman on the show because we've seen on Housewives like
yeah.
sometimes it holds women back and obviously understandably, but it's a it interjects a new dynamic, obviously, into the group,
Yeah,
and sort of how
absolutely.
did they evolve or revolve around that or not. I think will be interesting. But I agree, Madison had her best season yet. And again, I was on
Yeah.
Wikipedia looking at sort of the classifications of people. It's crazy. This was only Madison's third season as a full-time
Mm,
cast member. She was a
that's
friend for
nuts.
she was a friend, main, friend, and then main twice, like the last two, which
Wow.
is kind of, I feel like the friend ones must have been like essentially mains, but like it's kind of crazy because to me
Yeah.
she is Southern Charm in so many
Yeah.
ways to me,
Yeah. Big
outside of
time.
the three main guys. All right, so Vanita,
Hmm.
Madison, Vanita are good friends. Vanita, it felt like finally was having a main storyline this season. Like it
Hmm.
took 4 seasons, and she finally has something sort of, storyline A
Yeah.
here, with the JT of it all. And even after part two, you know, I think the timeline of it all has been cleared up in a lot of ways for me. I think I feel clearer about it. Do I still have a lot of unanswered questions about what happened there? Absolutely. Like, I
Yeah.
don't really understand what their dating in the fall after filming ended. I don't really understand what that looked like. I
Hmm.
feel like they might have had different ideas of what that was.
Hmm.
In the reunion, I guess he was still dating this woman, but now he seems to be broken up with this woman. So, and she's down, Vanita's down to date JT
Hmm.
apparently again. Um, I think my biggest, and I'll let you speak in a second, but my biggest question, I think, just generally is like, I don't feel like I have gotten from her like what she, what she's attracted to, what she sees in
Mm.
him. Like,
Yes.
she keeps saying we haven't seen that in him, and I just don't, I don't, I haven't seen it.
I saw a glimpse of it. I'll say
Okay,
that. I think it
where?
was the time when she made the Branzino and he came over.
Sure.
And there was sort of a little twinkle in his eye. Um, I do think maybe, I don't know, like sometimes he just comes across so dweeby sometimes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the presence of the other guys who are so too confident. But I think when he's just one on one with her, even when he was sort of one on one with kind of like anyone, he was calmer and he didn't feel like, a cat backed against the wall. Like I think he did some of the other times with the whole group there. You could kind of see a little bit of like I don't want to say suaveness. That's too strong of a word. But like a
I know what you're
little
saying.
bit of, yeah, like a little bit of like, just going into date mode a little bit more with her. Even like, the interaction in the store when she was like, "You look yummy." He's like, "Oh, I look yummy." And like you
Oh
could tell
God,
there's
not
like a bit of
yummy.
flirting there. Yeah. You could tell there's a bit of flirting between them. Now, as an outsider, when I look at these two people, I'm like Vanita is stunning. Like I just think she's gorgeous. She has made her own money. She takes care of Charles well. She dresses incredibly. Like she knows how to make a fish for a date. Like I just feel like there's so much to her and like I get that you're in Charleston and the pickings are slim, but I'm like, girl, like you had that man that was like in New York and stuff too. Now I don't know what happened with that, but I'm like you could do really well for yourself. If I was Vanita, I'd be sliding into so many DMs.
Totally. Yeah, and I think it kind of gets into this like, I think when you're a reality star for sort of this amount of time, like 3 to 4 seasons, and it's like, do I go all in or do I? And I think, and I'm not saying that it's like the wrong reasons or anything, but I think that your mind gets so jumbled as a reality star of like
Yes.
show from real life from show. Like there's so much overlap, particularly in Charleston, which is like such a small town. I think part of it is also like this is within the bubble of the show. There's this guy who like doesn't have as much history with the group and he
Hmm.
likes me, and like I think that again, that's not why she's with him, but I think that bolsters him in maybe some more subconscious ways if you're somebody like Vanita. Do you know what I mean? And also like again, probably maybe subconsciously it's like if we date and we're both on this show, like that's another 2 to 3 years
Yes.
of my career, you know?
There's a Stockholm syndrome to it all for sure.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
there's definitely well, you're in my proximity and like
Yeah.
like your reputation hasn't been fully tarnished yet. So why not? Like absolutely. Of that, she didn't come out looking like a loser. Like if anything,
No.
obviously it backfired on him of like, what are you doing? How did you fumble this so bad? I she can just do better, I think.
I
Like,
agree.
you know,
And
like,
also it's like, in part one of the reunion when Andy's like, JT, you performed a fuckboy exorcism on Austin last season. Maybe that energy went into you. And
mhm.
JT was like, well, I wouldn't know. I didn't fuck her. And like I was just sort of like, see, that's the kind of thing where I'm like, Vanita, like this guy's saying, because my whole thing about JT is that like he wants to present as a gentleman, but when it comes
Yes.
down to it, he's not
Yes.
really that much of a gentleman. Like
Yes.
he'll say the fuckboy thing to say,
Hmm.
the shitty thing to say, and that's exactly what happened on camera on this reunion. And I'm like, if they get together, let's say in the next season, JT and Rena give it a real go because he's no longer
Hmm.
with this girlfriend apparently.
Sure.
She needs to hold him accountable for some of these
Everything.
like not even very minor offenses. Like that's like a
Yeah.
really shitty thing to say. Like the group was kind of like flabbergasted when he said
Yeah.
that. So I just need her to stick it, like still stick it to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't give in super easily.
I think the thing that I've said about Craig for 1 million years is he's not wrong. It's just his delivery comes across harsh. And he was exactly right when he was saying, take the bitch thing out of this. Let's not even talk about the Miss Pat stuff. Everything else you said was stupid. Everything else was,
Hmm.
yeah, you'd think that you're like some like superior, like you have this moral superiority, and like you don't. And so like
Right.
it's the way he comments on everything else, he tries to stir it, but it always just splashes back
I
on him.
know.
And like
I
it's
know.
just like you need somebody on the show who's going to be much slicker about it than him.
Sure.
And he gives it a good try, but it's just like, no.
Yeah. I do think though that the purpose that he serves on the show is also sort of giving the other guys a common enemy, and like they get pretty activated by him,
Yes, they do. They
and
do.
that is a pretty good force to have within the group. Like
Yeah.
even though he's annoying and even though like you know what I mean, he's like a little dweeby, I do think that when it comes to like this sort of old guard boys club of Southern charm, like it's good that they found somebody like JT who
Yeah.
can be injected into the cast. They might not even like him, like any of
Yeah.
them besides Vanita, but like he can give them a run for their money in not like a really substantial way in terms of like, oh, he'll take them down. More just like he gets a little messy,
Yeah. He gets under
even
their
if
skin.
even
Yeah.
as they're improving their lives and being
Yeah.
more mature or whatever, like
Yeah.
the moments of weakness will come with him.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And the other purpose he serves is showing the full spectrum of douchebags in Charleston. So,
Sure.
like, you might have the Sheps, the Austins, who are like, might seem like the first time you lay eyes on them, oh God, like fuckboy or whatever. Then you have the JTs who are like discreet fuckboys who like you look at and you're like, oh, but he's like sweet. And it's like, okay, but then like give it a couple weeks and then see what you think then. And so it's like really showing us what the hell's in the water down there.
So do you think that JT called Pat a bitch?
um I I work in facts, and so like if the audio is not found, it's hard to say definitively. He was so adamant, and the fact that a lot of other people were like, I've never even heard him say that word, does make me think maybe not. But I do think the sentiment was probably lingering. But again, I Craig is an embellisher, so maybe he said something like, "Oh, what the fuck" or whatever. Like you never know, and like Craig spun it, but I don't want to doubt Craig, but I also do need to see it for myself. And
Yeah,
so,
I don't think he used the word. I don't think he
yeah,
used the word. I
yeah,
think that like, you're what you just said about what Craig said at the part two of the reunion, which was like he was like, let's take the bitch thing out of it.
yeah,
I think that the point that you made is very apt. It was sort of like I'm sure there was all this other bad shit that he was saying, and it was the sentiment was there. But I think Craig was he knew what he was doing. He was says, okay, take the bitch thing out of it. Like
yeah,
let's
yeah,
forget about that because I think
yeah.
that I don't know.
It's he's
It's
just
I don't think he called her a bitch. I don't, and Pat doesn't
probably
either.
not. Yeah, probably. I think I would think he knows better. But then like you think about him just like writing that card, and you're like, "Ugh, like at least like sit down and take your time and make your writing
I know.
clear so she can read it." And like the whole thing was just, oh, like you just like can't even look sometimes because you're like, oh my guy, what are you doing?
Uh-huh. All right, so let's get into the boys,
Okay.
the big three, if you
Yeah.
will.
Hmm.
Craig, Shep, and Austin.
Yeah.
they're sort of they're all going in the right direction. They're showing moments of growth that I really
Yeah.
actually like mostly for the most part, I believe in a lot of it. I think the sentiment and sort of the willingness and the want to get to that place for all of them is there. Like I think they all want to have their shit together. They
Yeah.
all want to stop being like I feel like when Andy calls them Peter Pans, like they like part of them shudders inside still.
Yeah.
Like I even though like that is what they are.
Yeah.
Um who to you is sort of like the current voice of reason in this trio? Who has grown up the most? Sort of where do you how do you view these three?
Disclaimer. So I am one of the people who does stand up for these men. Um, Part of that is, covering them for so long.
Yeah,
Part of that is being an optimist and really trying to see the best in people. And part of that is also realizing these boys are so easy to take our frustrations with the world out on. Like they are just the
so true.
model punchable faces. Like just anything you're mad about in the world, especially that's caused by like rich white men. Of course, like let's just take it out on these dum-dums. Like totally, I see that. I think I was actually shocked that of the three of them, Craig probably had the worst season or the harshest. I think Austin, I hope he enjoyed his season because he had a really easy one. I think he was owed that after a
I
couple
agree.
of rougher
I agree.
ones. I really hope he enjoyed it. I think you can't hide that girlfriend for long. She's got to start to be in the mix. We've got to start to
Hmm.
see that. And Shep, I was actually really proud of. I thought, I don't want to say that this could be an embarrassing season because I really believe if you're going to put your heart out there, you're even right off of your freckled lips, I do think that like it showed a lot of growth from him and a lot of I don't want to say like bravery, but like,
He was
it's really
vulnerable. He was
yeah, he was
vulnerable.
really vulnerable
Yeah.
in a way that like he is not usually. And he also handled it with a lot of like grace and sort of a aw shucks and like, that's what happens. And he didn't get mad and bitter about it. I mean, whatever he did that night on the beach where he just, was drunk and sitting out there, fine,
Oh
whatever. But
yeah.
like,
Let's we forget he got kicked out of another casino,
I mean, well, he
which
he
is
does know how to do that.
an
Yeah.
underrated detail of the season, I will
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Like they kind of skated by
Yeah.
that. It's the second in a
Yeah.
year. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. But I don't, but he didn't, he could have come on camera and said, had some real choice words, and he didn't. I think he really looked inward and, I thought he handled the whole thing probably better than most would have handled, being sort of, again, I don't want to say embarrassed because like it is embarrassing, but it's not because we've all sort of been through something like
Yeah.
that. So I think, and for Craig, same, where I give him a lot of credit for having that conversation on the beach with Austin. That's
Hmm.
not easy to have. And that was clearly something he was not really eager to say on camera. And then I think knew he needed to explain himself, if not even just for his friend to understand. Um, the Paige stuff was hard for me because, he says he just judges off camera, but I'm like, but the stuff she says on camera, it's clear that she was sort of like, ugh, like just sort of rolling her eyes at a lot of things that he did. So it was with the exception of Austin, because Austin really got off pretty scot-free this
I
season.
would say so too.
Yeah, struggling with your like friendship, okay, fine, but like he was giggling with Madison and he's in love and people really weren't coming for him. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think I agree. I think that I guess it felt like with the Craig and Austin stuff, it's sort of like it was this really long simmering thing of like I think Craig probably knew he had to say this
yeah.
about like, potentially being an alcoholic and wanting to sort of take drinking out of the equation for himself before it got like really, really bad.
Mhm.
I think that was really brave and it was a really great conversation. And like, I think that that was a breakthrough for them in a lot of ways, even though on the reunion we saw like there was still a lot of sort of lingering stuff, but that stuff felt a little bit less serious. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
felt like, in watching part two, it was sort of like, you realize like how hard lined Craig is. Like he is
Mm.
like even like it felt like him and Austin were making progress, whatever. And then they all say they're scared of him, and he's like, all right, well, if you feel that way, like we don't have to be friends anymore. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
like calm down. You know what I mean? Like let's
Yeah.
not. And then like two
Yeah.
seconds later, he's like smiling because Austin says he loves him. So it's
Yeah.
sort of like they have this truly brotherly thing that is there is something very compelling and sort of sweet about it, honestly, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, because like they have a really that's what their relationship is. And I was trying to think about sort of I feel like Craig is almost like he's both frustrated with Austin because when he says like when I see Austin drinking, even if it's
Yeah.
like just margaritas at happy hour and then going
Yeah.
home or mimosas on a at Sunday brunch, like he gets angry about it.
Mm.
And I feel like he's both frustrated at Austin for doing that because he feels like if he's drinking, like he's not, he could be 10 steps ahead in his business and he could be maybe closer to where Craig is in life in terms of probably financially speaking. Um, but also I feel like there's almost probably a subconscious like almost jealousy that
Oh yeah.
Austin clearly has a lot more of a balanced relationship with alcohol and he can have the margaritas like two at a happy hour or
Yeah.
most at brunch and be okay and just
Hmm.
whatever. And Craig clearly has a struggles more with that. And I think he feels two ways about it, I think, and that's hard to make sense of.
I think exactly right. And I think there's more to that too, where Craig has always been ambitious. Even if he's a mess, he's always been super ambitious. I don't get
Right.
that same ambition from Austin.
Hmm.
And I think Craig has instilled a bit of it in him. And I think Craig also feels a little bit resentful where he's like, I've helped motivate you. I've brought you into, my world of business and, started this podcast and all of that. And so I think there's a little bit of resentment towards, I've helped you get your business off the ground in a way
Sure.
too. And yeah, I don't see that just like blind ambition in Austin, which I think is fine because he seems
Totally.
happy and he seems like, yeah, I got my beer and we'll do this and I do the show and whatever. Like live your life. But like I think Craig feels so motivated by it and to not have substances fueling that or even taking him away from it now there's even more of that and I think
Yeah.
especially after a breakup and also he's comparing himself to Paige and seeing her success he's striving for more I want to do bigger theaters and blah 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 so I think it's um and then for Austin to not be meeting him and so it's sort of like Craig is or like Paige is kind of like winning the race and Craig's trying to keep up with her and Austin's like nah I'm just gonna watch from the sidelines and it's like
Yeah.
that was not working for Craig. So
Right, right, totally. And like
yeah.
Craig, obviously, as we've seen a little bit on Summer House, like, or from Paige's perspective, like he has a little bit of a difficulty admitting that maybe Paige is a little bit ahead of him. But also, it's like I think that he went this direction because of Paige. He
Yeah.
like went full throttle in this direction. Like he said, like I kind of I want this life at home and like Paige it was nice having this person with me there but like he said he had to isolate himself from the lifestyle of the other men on Southern Charm
Mhm.
to get to a place where he was comfortable with not drinking pretty much at all and yeah it's a really nuanced dynamic honestly and I think that I never thought about the ambition aspect of it and that's very much tied up into that and I think that's why Austin also I wouldn't say Austin maybe values the friendship more than Craig, but I think that it's more like front of mind important to him in that
Yeah.
way because like to him it's like I want to be making my money. I want to have my girlfriend. I want my friends. Like I don't
Mhm.
need to be a mogul. I don't need to be but like that's and
Yes.
I think with Craig the moguldom and we saw that
Yes.
in they played their audition tapes or whatever
Yeah.
like, from like the
Yeah.
reel before the show started on part two of the
Yeah.
reunion which was so interesting to see and you're right, Craig has had that ambition since then. He was like, I don't
Mhm.
want to be a lawyer to like practice law. I want to be a lawyer to make money. Money
Yeah.
is important to me. And
Yeah.
that was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Money's awesome. I was
oh
like,
my God.
oh
Oh my
God,
God. That
cringe.
comment he made about his wife not being born yet was
Yeah.
really difficult. Was really difficult to watch.
Because also of all of them, he's the one that I don't get the like she's not born yet vibes from.
No. No,
Like
that was him
he
like being
yeah.
like not a fully formed human living in
Yeah.
Charleston.
Yeah, that
You know what
frontal
I
lobe
mean?
was not all the way in yet. That's for
No.
sure. Yeah.
No. When it
Yeah.
comes to the Shep and Sienna stuff, like, what do you think happened there? Like, do you view her as somebody who was kind of like trying to get famous and like be on the reality show? Do you view it as Shep like sort of not misrepresenting it, but sort of thinking it was more than it was the whole time? Do you think that she pulled back because of the cameras? Like, how do you read how that went down?
There is a lot of conflicting information. On
I
one hand,
agree.
yes, you can make an absolute argument for being like she's an opportunist and she's just trying to like get with like the first, or the richest man she can find on Raya. Like, there's an argument to be made for that. I didn't quite get those vibes, and I also didn't get the vibes of like her wanting to be famous and be on camera because she only, I believe, throughout the season, once her stuff started airing, went on TikTok like once to like basically stand up for herself and be like, actually, this is what it was from my point of view.
Hmm.
So I think if you were her and you were actually trying to capitalize on it, you'd be all over TikTok and Instagram just being like, hey, Southern Charm fam. Like, and I don't think she really did that. And I don't think she came across like good or bad. You know what I mean? Because I think like the impression I got from the Shep side of it was that he's a love bomber. The fact that he's like
Yeah.
dropping the L word, getting the shark tooth necklace, like all of that stuff is like, and I think that the guys were right in the assessment that like Shep was at his best when he was with Taylor and he was in a relationship and he was chasing that again. Yes. And I think it is a huge step from 6 years ago, Shep, to be having him even think about kids or marriage or settling down. The idea of Sienna is so intriguing. I understand. Oh
It
my
was the idea
gosh.
of her.
Yeah, it was exactly the idea of her. Like a beautiful model is interested in me and I can go have a motel in the Bahamas and like live the island life. Like, no, like, I get why that sounds appealing. And he could have that. He could absolutely have that. There's 20 more of her on Raya. You know what I mean? Like you could find that. But like the whole thing was very strange. They could have made her look worse, and I'm glad they didn't because I don't think she was fully at fault. Um, and I think he love bombed her, and he kind of love bombed himself a little bit too into the whole
Yeah.
idea of it.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think just for old time's sake, I just want to read the text that he sent
Okay,
her because
great. Yeah.
to me, I I think my sister's dog is trying to get in.
Okay, great.
Because to me, I think that was one of the highlights of the season, one of the most
Mm.
memorable things. Good morning,
My
Sienna.
My favorite part of the text is that 1 second where you
The fr-
see Craig and Austin like giggling about
oh
it
my
in front of
God.
him. That to me,
Yep.
like hang it in the Louvre. Like that was like the best moment of it. But now
So
read
let me just do a little
uninterrupted. Yes,
dramatic
great,
reading. Yes.
wonderful.
Good morning, Sienna. Listen, I love seeing you and no one else, no one. But I'm not going to try to convince someone they love me for 3 days, especially when I know deep down they do. Here's hoping you understand my feelings and exalt them. I just don't feel this way ever. I know that you agree and feel a lot of what I do because I've heard it from your perfect little freckled lips. And those around us can say and think what they will, but we will have the last laugh and we'll have love, laughter, and everything that matters. Okay, my TED talk is over. That's art. That's poetry.
I mean,
I mean,
it
tag yourself.
is.
Are you exalt? Are you little perfect little freckled lips?
No, I'm
Are
listen.
you
I'm problematic right from the jump. I'm listen. Like
listen?
that to me, when you're starting a text message or a soliloquy with listen, it's like, oh
Oh my
gosh. Yeah,
gosh.
exalted is one thing. Freckled lips is really
Yeah,
it's
that's quite
accurate, but
quite
it's
iconic.
cringe. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I just
yeah,
there's so much in no way at no point in constructing that text did he think about who was receiving it. He was only thinking about himself and his feelings, and I'm so glad he was able to communicate them. But
yes. It was to an yeah, as she was not there to receive these feelings, and
yeah.
because like when he says, especially when I know deep down you they do, I was thinking that was gonna end with don't,
Yeah.
and it was like he couldn't read the room, and I think that my read on it is ultimately that like he has gotten a lot of his shit together. It sounds like he parties a little bit less. He
He
definitely has his
looks good.
moments again. Yeah, he
Yeah.
looks good. He's working out. He seems to have some things in his life together that he didn't a couple of years ago. He clearly still has his moments, like at the casino, and
Hmm.
they're probably fueled by sort of these emotional moments that he
Hmm.
can't really deal with still. but I think they viewed his life as like, I have so much of myself together. The one thing missing is the woman in the
Mm.
family. I think that the first person that came along that showed interest to him, like Sienna did, he just latched onto, again, the idea of what
Yeah.
she could be for him.
Yeah.
And again, that completely disregarded her own feelings and like sentiments.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that's what sort of fueled this whole thing.
I also think, when she came to the doggy Parton party, that,
What a sentence.
yeah, truly, the end. But the interaction that she had with Taylor when they hugged and Taylor was like, or she's like, I've heard so much about you, and Taylor was like, oh, I hope good, and she was like, mostly is a huge accomplishment. Like the fact that most of it is
So
good,
true.
it all could be bad. And so the fact that Taylor spun that into drama, it's like, what do you think she's hearing from your ex-boyfriend? Like the
Right.
fact that he was even saying anything good about you, I would be like, oh, wow, that's great.
Uh-huh.
Instead of just like, how dare you say anything bad? And it's
Right.
like, well,
I kind of think he's also still in love with Taylor, personally. I think he still has a lot of unresolved. I don't think he
I
fully processed that.
No, he didn't. He didn't. He carried it over into the Sienna stuff. And that's why I think he was so confident that she loved him too, when it was really like, well, Taylor probably loved you too, but like this girl doesn't know you that way yet. And so, yeah, I don't, it's, but yes. So anyway, the point of that, what I was going to say is, Sienna didn't like make Doggy Parton about her. Like she seemed to sort of go under
Right.
the
You're right.
radar a bit at that party. And so again, I think if you were really trying to like make a show of it, it's not like she got in any of the drama or anything that day. So,
Yeah.
um,
I think I initially came into this admittedly thinking that like my read was like, she wants to be on camera. She wants to like that was my initial read on it. And
yeah,
I think that through this conversation, through other conversations, I think that I have been convinced that that was not really the case for her.
yeah.
But I definitely that was my first impression
Oh,
of what she was doing.
it's
But
not,
I
it,
don't think that anymore.
yeah, I think it's really easy if you just sort of had the facts, but there is a lot more nuance to it. Even the like matching with Whitney on Riot, like,
Right. Well,
I
yeah, because
mean,
that's also like it's sort of how the cast presented it. They were like, "Oh,
yeah,
she matched with Whitney on Raya.
yeah.
Oh, she's a fan of the show. Oh, she's making all these." It's like, but the nuances of it are like, well, her conversation with Whitney was a back and forth for two, like a
Yeah.
"Hey, how are you?" And her grandma was a fan of the show,
Yeah.
not her.
If
So
my grandma was a fan of somebody, I would absolutely swipe on them just to
sure,
like see if we matched and then just
yeah,
be like, oh my God, we
beyond,
like
yeah,
said
yeah.
hi. Like
See what
you would just
happens.
see. Yeah. And so
Yeah,
like I don't think she actually gave a shit about Whitney. And I think she only marged I think the Shep thing, she was just like, I'll just see what happens.
intriguing. Yeah,
Yeah, like
totally.
and like,
Yeah, and then he
but
got
she
carried away.
probably yeah, she's probably into the football guy more, which
Sure.
more power to her. So
Right. All right, so Leah, the last kind of big thing for us to talk about here is the Paige and Craig of it
okay.
all.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously, like in the season, they weren't really having any major issues.
Yeah.
They had their minor things, but I think I'm pretty sure the season was re-edited, at least in those things, to sort of
Hmm.
play up some of the fissures that were in their relationship and some of the tension that was there. And it's been this interesting experience because now we're also watching Summer House, which is like a month or maybe a month ahead of this, 2 months ahead of this in terms of their timeline of their relationship. And on there, it's much more clear. But on here, it's sort of like the inklings of things, right? And
Yeah.
like in hindsight, it's like again, kind of obvious, as you said, that like Paige was more removed than maybe he realized. Where are you landing on this? Because obviously, I mean, like again, like you have more investment, I think, in this show probably than you do on the
Mhm.
Summer House side of things. So where are you with the Paige and Craig of it all?
For the last 3 years that they've been together, people are always like, oh my God, do you think they're going to get married? People have always asked me, as I'm sure they've asked you, the same. And deep down in my heart, the answer was like, no, it's a reality TV couple. Like, probably not. But above that was, well, I would hope so because like the match made sense.
Totally.
Beautiful, they're beautiful together. Like this is so fun. What an amazing story. Like it was, you wanted it, you rooted for it. I did at least. Like, they seemed really happy. And it's sort of like, how could you not fall for the other? She's beautiful and hilarious and has her shit together, and he is successful and also, handsome. And they, I'm sure, had a shorthand about being on TV or their schedules or whatever that a lot of other people aren't going to
Hmm.
understand. And yes, a BravoCon wedding, what a dream. Um, and I think there's a bit of loving the idea of the other person in this as well. And I
Definitely.
think, yeah, like it's when they got together, they got a ton of attention. It's only helped both of their careers, which is,
Hmm.
that's great. Like embrace that, leverage that, go for it. Um, but the fact that neither was budging on moving, I don't think after 6 months you have to make a decision about where you're going to move to, but I think those are the kinds of things that you certainly need to be, somebody needs to be like, yeah, you know what, after one more year in Charleston, I'm going to be over it. Or, yeah, I can do my business from New York or whatever. And so, like, the fact that there was no budging on that is sort of, that was a pretty big indicator that, like, well, this is only going to get harder the longer this goes. Putting your relationship on TV is really hard. Um, I feel like I defend Kyle and Amanda a lot too, where I'm like, when I see them in person off screen,
Yep. Yep. It's different.
yeah,
It's easy.
they seem completely fine, if
Hmm.
not better than fine
I
together.
agree.
But then when you watch the show and you're like, what the hell is he doing? And so like it just I wanted them to I wish that it would have worked out for them because it seemed nice. You could tell how badly he loved being in that backyard and having her around in her little baby doll dress. And like, you could tell how much he really liked that. The other thing I would say to him, though, too, the thing that I think she's done so well is she said, why do I have to sort of conform to what society is expecting of me? And he's sort of leaning even harder the other way of like, well, this is what society expects of me. And so this is what I want to do. I don't know. I can't tell if he is like, you know what, maybe I don't want to get married. I like that she has been like, I am 31, 32, whatever. Like, give me a break, give me
Yeah.
some time.
Me
I'm
too.
thriving. Like, that is absolutely the right message. Like, she wants to live in New York, live in New York. You want to be near your family? Be near your family. Like I don't fault either of them. I hate that the details of the breakup have gotten murky and
Hmm.
not cute. I don't like that. I wish it was an amicable thing.
Yeah.
I do think he's tried his best to be respectful-ish about it. And I get her friends standing up for her and being less respectful
I
about it and
know.
just
I
being
know.
like, this is what it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, the cracks are showing, and I don't think he likes cracks showing either. Whereas I think she's sort of okay with cracks
She's okay with
showing.
the cracks showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think the
Um,
cracks bolster her decision.
yeah.
And I think he kind of summed it up perfectly from his side. And I think that the awareness actually, I was impressed by the awareness that he showed on this part two of the reunion where he said, I was in love not with the reality, but the potential of what I thought we could be. I was
Hmm.
blinded by wanting to make it work. And
Hmm.
you're right. Like he liked the idea. He was ignoring all the signs that like were showing. Again, in hindsight from the outside, it's much easier to see these things and that are also
Yeah.
edited on a TV show that's meant to highlight those
Yeah.
things. Um, but yeah, I also think that the moving thing, it was like, yeah, it wasn't a big deal because they were still in the first few years of their relationship. Like, but I don't agree with the critics that say that Paige never intended to marry him, never intended to set up a life with him. She was just using him to get like to bolster her. I
No.
don't believe any of that. I think that
No.
that was a byproduct, and I think that it got really real for her. I think that she
Hmm.
realized a lot of this stuff that she didn't want with him in actuality once it became more real. Once he said,
Yeah.
I will move to New York for you. Once he said, I will get the ring for you. That's when it's like, oh shit, this is like, that's when but that's when I think you really have to face your actual feelings. And I think that she did
Hmm.
that, and I think, he bought the ring. So, or that's what he said. So like, you wish he didn't have to buy the ring, but at least she did it before he moved to New York. At least she did it
Yeah.
before they got engaged,
Yeah.
and I think it was the best decision for both of them. But it's tough because I think we wanted this fairy tale cross show
Yeah.
romance. But
But
I
the
think
other thing, oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
there you go.
Like 32 in New York is a baby, and 37 in South Carolina is a grandfather. And so, like,
So
that
true.
is like, she has so much she can still do and accomplish and all that. Biological clocks and whatever aside, she can figure out what she wants to do with her life. She should not let pressure from
No.
him or any of that slow her down. I'm really glad that she's not. And the same for him though. He shouldn't let that pressure be like, oh, he likes to work on a timeline and she's like, meh, like, she's not gonna she's not yielding to that. And so I just think that's a very different perspective being in those locations at that age. And yeah, giving the ring back, I mean, he'll get most of his money back for that ring. I'm sure it's beautiful, but like,
Hmm.
and when everyone was like,
I
I
wonder
can't
if we'll
believe
ever
they
see
broke
it.
up. Yeah, I know. And everyone was like, I can't believe they broke up. I'm like, and I'm right, where I'm like, he will have some other lady immediately.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing about propelling her career. She could have Andrew Garfield or whoever the fuck she wants. Like she could get a way bigger name than
She could go
Craig Conover.
celebrity.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
she absolutely can. And you know what? I
And
think
she
she
might
will. And
next.
I
I
hope
think she
she will.
might.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like girl, go. Like, and so I just think no, if this was a move to further careers, I think they both knew it's good for their careers and
And
it's
it
good for
did.
their
Yeah.
business and their podcasts. But I think that ties into the idea, not just, and I do think they loved each other.
I think
Um,
so too.
but yeah, they if they wanted, if she wanted it for a career,
Yeah.
she would
I think
have no problem with that.
the
Yeah.
one thing that it continues to frustrate me with the Craig side is like he was on the first time he was on Watch What Happens Live, he answered all the questions
Yeah.
except for when the cheating rumors were coming up about her. And he was like, I don't want to take part in that. I don't want to
Uh-huh.
attach my name to that. Which and then on the reunion, kind of same thing. He answers a lot of the questions. And again,
Mhm.
kudos to him for answering the questions, but he kind of gave the same answer
Yeah.
when Andy brought that up. And I guess one read on it is like, he knows that if he says yes,
Hmm.
it makes both of them look bad in a way
Hmm.
because he is fueling it and keeps saying he doesn't want to
Yeah.
fuel it. And it also makes her look bad because obviously it insinuates that she's a cheater. But on the other hand, it's sort of like by not answering the
Hmm.
question, it's also fueling it. And like I guess it's a no-win question to answer, but that continues to frustrate me, I will say.
He said it best in the reunion when he said, I'm not going to say anything on camera that's going to perjure myself. And so he's not
Right.
going to say anything where they can say, well, you thought that she cheated. And he's not going to put words to that. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, he's going to let people draw their own conclusions. Again, it is also a way of him trying to be, quote, respectful to her.
For
If I
sure.
had to put my money on it, yeah, he probably thinks something was going on. And that's part of the reason why it ended. But he's not going to say that because, yeah, that makes everybody look bad, but like kind of especially him, even if she
Hmm.
did. Like, and so I just think, I get the frustration that you have. Um, I
It's a
also just
difficult
want to,
situation for him to be in, but
yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
also just want to say that the timelines of things when they happen versus when they're airing makes it very difficult for these people to go on Watch What Happens Live or do press or do interviews or whatever and be fully honest.
So
And so
true.
like
It's a good
the
point.
holding him to the fire of like, well, why weren't you honest about this? I have his back on this because I'm like, if a 3-year relationship just ended and my heart is broken and I'm still holding out hope that maybe the other person's going to change their mind, I'm not going to Watch What Happens Live to be like, we're done. Like, I'm not. I'm keeping that to myself and I'm
Hmm.
pretending everything is fine, even though I know that seems deceitful. Like, to me, that's, we either figure out our joint Instagram statement that we're going to put out, or yeah, you go on Giggly Squad and announce it or whatever. I just think it's. Uh, that happens more than not. Like, let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
you're
That
right.
happens
You're right.
all the time, just in the nature of this production. Which is frustrating for viewers, of course, because we'd love to be there in real time, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and that to me adds to sort of the intrigue and the
yeah,
interesting layer that you have to kind of work through as a viewer. You
yeah.
know, like the fact that these are kind of really confusing timelines.
One other thing
Are
about him too this season, let's not forget, he jumped right on in that pool, suede shoes and all, to save Vanita. And
so
like,
true.
I feel like the editing on that was very strange, and
That
I
was a
didn't quite.
crazy moment.
It was very weird. The whole thing was so weird, but still, he didn't even hesitate. He got right in there, and
No,
so
I mean,
like,
listen, I think
everyone else
Craig is a
just threw
good
up.
guy. I do think Craig
Yeah.
is a good person at the end of the day. I just think that like, and maybe it's just because like as viewers were like you said, you liked you'll defend these guys. I think a lot of
Yeah.
viewers are sort of conditioned not to. I think we're
Yeah.
conditioned to sort of like again, sort of take our issues out on them in
Hmm.
some ways, and that was a very accurate point. And I also think that like this is sort of the first time that we've had sort of an inter-show
Mm.
breakup where
Hmm.
ultimately I think a lot of Bravo viewers, and it's kind of being proven, they have allegiances to shows. And like
Yes.
these are two different sort
Yes.
of I mean, Madison's openly saying, I'm on Greg's team, and
Yeah.
like that's just how it's netting out. And so I think it's the cast members defending them. It's sort of like on the one hand, it feels a little bit like some of them are doing their dirty work for either side, by sort of saying the stuff that they
Yeah.
don't want to say themselves. But also, it's like it's great to see them all defending their own, And so I
Yeah.
think you can take it both ways. So
I also think you're 100% right on that. And I will say this about the men of Southern Charm. I'm not saying they're not boneheads. But there are like worse, more malicious people in the world than
totally.
them. And so like that's the thing that like frustrates me about it is I'm like, look, like a broken heart here or there, like we've all recovered from that.
Hmm.
So like whatever. And that's the thing that I also hate is like I don't want to be on a team because I like Paige and I like Craig. And so like it's
Totally.
really hard to be like that bitch or that idiot or whatever. Like I don't it's a relationship between again two gorgeous successful people that didn't work out. I'm sorry for you guys, but also they both seem completely fine, so I'm not going to sit here and be pouting about it. Like we all got to move on. Like they will
Yeah.
date amazing new people and have wonderful lives, and I'm like
Yeah. I think that Craig moving on and confirming that he's dating somebody is the best. That's good news for
totally.
everybody. And
Yeah,
I've said that a couple
totally.
times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
last question for you, Leah, before I let you
Yeah.
go. I know we've gone over time. What do you hope the show looks like next season? Like, how do you hope because I think again, it was sort of an uneven season, I would say overall,
Yeah.
with a pretty big cast. So what do you hope it looks like next year? What do you want to see? What are some threads you want them to follow?
I don't want to have any questions is my main thing. So Audrey, let's go step on up. Let's get
Totally.
Audrey in here. And let's see him in a healthy, loving relationship that's reciprocated. Like let's see that. Like we've wanted to see that from Austin for so long. Like now's your time, show it. I will also say shout out to Katie, his sister. I love her. I mean, she's like really cool, but like make her a full-time cast member because she does a lot of the important work of like asking him the
She
questions that he
does.
needs to
She
say the
does.
information to. Yeah. So I love her. Shep, I hope to see balanced. Let's put it that way. Not like, full man child, but also not like full I'm obsessed. Like let's like, maybe you're dating or maybe you found someone or whatever, but like let's like balance the spectrum a little bit there. Um, Craig, we didn't really see a ton of the business stuff this year, so I'd like to see a
You're
little
right.
more of like what's actually happening there. Definitely more Molly and Sally and their
Hmm.
lives, of course. Taylor, I would say sit it out unless you're going to bring the boyfriend
I
in
agree.
because
I
I
think
don't
sit it out
know.
regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Ryan, I would either say, pass or friend or or
Yeah.
step it up. Like we've got to figure out a lane for him. But Rodrigo I love too, and so I'd like to see more from Rodrigo. Um, and I'd like to see Vanita thriving. And JT I think can also just sort of go away.
Do you think we'll see JT and Vanita dating next season?
No.
Okay. And do you think we'll see Shep and Molly dating next season?
No, 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 no. I think
Okay.
that's already over. But I would like to see her dating other people
Okay.
and sort of what that looks like as she navigates that. And same with
Okay.
Sally.
Okay.
And I'm excited to see what Madison is up to because, with
Of
Brett
course.
healthy and the baby on the way, like I'm excited to see what that
Me
brings.
too. Me too. I
Yeah.
think that they have a lot of the good ingredients on this show. I
Yeah,
just think the balance is a little bit out of whack this season.
I
But I think that
agree.
they can rejigger things, and I think that
Mhm.
like it's always exciting when you have new additions that you want to invest in, that like, you're
Yeah.
willing to invest in, because so often we get new people that we're like, ugh, you're going to be a one and done, but like,
Yeah,
I think we have some new ones here who we want to see what the rest of their life looks like. And that's a really promising sign. So I feel like
that's
and the
huge.
reunion was great, as we said. So
Yeah.
it was a pretty good reunion. So, I think they're setting themselves up for hopefully a good
Yeah.
season. next
I'm
year.
interested to see, and I think that especially if they follow with the Molly and Sallys of the world and like really give them their time, that they'll embrace even more of the kookiness of the show, which is always what's appealed to me. So I hope they really lean into that.
Yeah. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Well, Leah, thank you so much for joining. I'm sorry for keeping a little longer, but there was a
No,
lot to talk
please.
about.
Could do this all day. So
Any plugs you want to do before we sign off? I know you have a little
Oh,
series going that you're working on.
uh-huh. Oh yeah, so I'm currently hosting a podcast with iHeart that's called Grown Up Stuff. So we teach you about all the things that we already should know about. I know a few Southern Charm cast members that probably need to tune in. So I'm working on that. And yeah, you can follow me at Little Leap on Instagram. And I think that's probably most of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And
Thank you,
we'll do,
Gibson. It's always
we'll do
wonderful to
this.
see you.
We'll do it more often now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Leah.
Thank you.
I want to gab.